You're not going to tell us something new like it's coming from your own thoughts. You're going to give us this rehearsed YouTube atheism answer.
If God real, why bad thing happened?
So this is the theodicy argument. And so they're going to give us Stephen Fry. Well, he's got Stephen Fry in here somewhere.
The scientist doesn't really engage in mythology. Rather than wanting to believe, he wants to know. An honest scientist will take a look
my gosh, this is like this. We've watched some insufferable stuff lately, but like this is insufferable to me. Like I can't even.
The world around him, come up with some sort of an explanation, and then set off to prove himself wrong, not right.
Okay, so this kind of reminds me of, did you ever, it was maybe a year or two ago, Jordan Peterson had Lawrence Krauss on.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't stand Lawrence Krauss.
Lawrence Krauss drives me crazy, too. He came in with Jordan Peterson in good faith.
Yeah. But he said one of the dumbest things during that podcast. He said a lot of things that made me like him a little bit more than I had before. But this one thing he said, it was because Jordan Peterson said something about scientists not liking, like, nobody likes to be disproven. And Lawrence Krauss says, no, scientists do like to be disproven. And then
this is not true.
Well, by doing that, he tells this story about, he's like, well, I grew up thinking that most matter was in bodies of mass, like Earths and moons and things like that. But then when I got older, I had this idea that maybe most matter is in outer space instead. And that was like a big Lawrence Krauss discovery. As a physicist, he discovered that most matter actually lies in space rather than in.
Why wouldn't that be okay?
Anyway,
why wouldn't that be obvious?
Well, no, he's trying to use that as a reason why, like, see, scientists love being disproven. It's like, you weren't disproven. You just used this story to brag about your biggest life accomplishment. And congratulations on that, by the way. Good job.
So I know a lot of the atheist scripts, something from a Dawkins book. He has something about this, after a long day of debates, one of these other scientists conceded to the other that he was wrong and the other was right, and everybody stood and cheered, and there was not a dry eye in the house or something like that. And that's a real story. He really says there was not a dry eye in the house.
That sounds like church. My God.
But the other thing that it is because you can talk to all sorts of other scientists.
So that's how you know that it's true, is because we all cried over it, and we're very non-religious and completely rational.
Yeah. And the flip end of that too is you do not have to poke far or listen around to a lot of different scientists to find out that is absolutely not true. They fight and fight and fight until the ends of times about different ideas and hold on to their ideas. And there's even the same old joke, like I was talking last time about the idea of 40 years in the desert because you need a generation to die out. There's all sorts of ideas in the world of science that you have to have a certain generation to die out to even start playing again with some certain ideas. And Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein complain about it all the time that certain ideas absolutely get shut down. Like Brett Weinstein brought up that he was mentioning to people his idea that through the evolution of mice, that their telomeres were getting longer and longer, that the mice that we were testing, if you just think about it, if you just keep killing and killing and killing and keeping the resilient ones, in a weird way, you're creating a super mouse, right? So over time, testing on those same mice becomes different. They're getting longer telomeres, cells that kind of predict how slowly you age and that sort of stuff. But they're important cells because they're cells that help with recovery. And he was pointing out that just through the simple process of evolution, we're creating mice that it doesn't make very much sense to be running all these tests on because we've created super mice. We've created way down the line generation super mice. He's got the story of going through hell of trying to bring that up to people across like 10 or 15 years. And then finally when it got accepted is because somebody else had to say it, not him. And then that person took credit for it and all the sorts. It's just not true.
Don't come at me. Well, it's Lawrence Krauss pretending that the scientist, and he's a good one to follow if you want to really get into the mind of like an internet atheist, because he's a brilliant physicist, but he's absurd as anything else because that's the ideal scientist. I get that. The ideal scientist is somebody that loves to be proven wrong because then it brings him closer to truth. But
Yeah.
people aren't really like that in practice. That's Nietzsche's Ubermensch, but it's the Uber scientist, you know? Like, I want to be proven wrong. And by the way, he didn't even use a story of him being proven wrong. He used a story of him proving another guy's idea wrong that he once thought was right, and
Yeah.
claiming that that was him being proven wrong, and being so humble that he was excited to be proven wrong. But like, you won prizes and shit for that. It's not you being proven wrong.
You can go right to Dawkins. There was an endless fight between Dawkins and Stephen Jay Gould. Stephen Jay Gould, he came up with the concept of Lamarckian evolution from where? From Marxian, what they call Marxian hermeneutics, or what's the word? When you graft it on to something, they grafted on Marxism the same way that Lysenko grafted on Marxism to trying to grow crops. Stephen Jay Gould grafted Marxism onto the concept of evolution and came up with the ideas of directed equilibrium, which is the concept is that the immediate experiences of the mother will affect evolution to make it go way faster than just the slow evolution. Dawkins and Stephen Jay Gould fought about this forever, and it's never been ultimately resolved, at least not through the people who believe the slow evolution versus the Lamarckian evolution. There's not agreement on it. And Dawkins knows that perfectly well. That's just one of a million different ideas. But one of the things that drove me nuts about Krauss, even before any of this stuff came up, is that I remember a few years ago, him talking about being completely sure that these scientists like himself, we are the ones who should be making decisions and running the earth and the country because we are the smart ones. We are the smart and scientific ones. I'm not saying that very far off from exactly how he said it.
Do you know, Lawrence Krauss, how many dystopian books I've read where you are the antagonist?
Exactly. And they're actually the type of people who freak me out more than anybody around right now. The people who are sure that they can find out the ideas scare me way more than the religious people, the technocrats who are sure that they can figure it out for everybody. Then he had this whole thing where he got accused of sexually harassing a girl at his school. And he came out with like a whole entire paper, and of course he got canceled, just like all those new atheists got canceled one by one for some different claim or another. He came out with a paper saying like, I can scientifically prove that I did not sexually harass that girl and all this stuff. But I remember I think I commented right to him, and he even commented back to me on his Facebook page that he was like leaving the US or something. He wasn't mentioning it. I'm gonna say, are you going to somewhere where Title IX doesn't touch you anymore? I don't know. Those guys, it's the same with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson got canceled all up and down. Even Shermer. I guess that's neither here nor there on the other stuff. But
we'll have to have a cringe off between Neil deGrasse Tyson and Lawrence Krauss at some point.
Well, I bet you Neil cannot be beaten there. I bet you can't. But
no, you're right. Lawrence Krauss is more evil.
He's evil, but he's definitely said some cringe things. You'd be able to find at least 20 good, stupid tweets. Although there was one or two. Man, have you ever seen that tweet by Dawkins of him saying that he just didn't understand at all the concept of a metaphor?
Like Dawkins himself didn't understand?
Dawkins said it.
I love atheist cringe, so.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Maybe.
Kafka's Metamorphosis is called a major work of literature. Why? If it's science fiction, it's bad science fiction. If like Animal Farm, it's an allegory. An allegory of what? Scholarly answers range from pretentious Freudian to far-fetched feminists. I don't get it. Where are the Emperor's clothes?
What?
He's saying that the Emperor has no clothes, and people saying Metamorphosis is good from Kafka.
Yeah, okay. I've never read Metamorphosis. So.
This text right here, laying down some righteous truths about what it means to be human in a modern capitalist society. The only thing everybody wants you to do is keep your head down, grind hard at your job, and stack that cheddar. And it ain't just the boss man wearing your ass down, it can even be your own blood. See, back when Gregor was hustling for dough by being his boss's favorite nut rest, all that Bug Boys family did was just sit on their asses. Gregor's only concern had been to devote everything he had in order to allow his family to forget as quickly as possible the business misfortune which had brought them all into a state of complete hopelessness. They took the money with thanks, and he happily surrendered it, but the special warmth was no longer present. But after Gregor gets smacked up with that ugly stick, everybody in the family got to sack up and start making that scratch. Greta got Gregor's back at first, but eventually can't stand that nasty mug no more and say he gotta go. Even though back then Gregor's cash flow was provided for the whole damn family, they tripping now that all three gotta support just him. Ain't that some shit? When even your family looking at you like you ain't nothing more than a cash machine, you living in a cold-ass society that can turn even the hardest hoods into insects. For Gregor, all that mess he gotta put up with makes him a little less human every day. Some scholars wonder if Gregor actually transformed into a bug at all. Maybe getting dumped on day in and day out just made him feel like an insect. I have to deal with the problems of traveling, the worries about train connections, irregular bad food, temporary and constantly changing human relationships, which never come from the heart. To hell with it all. In a hopeless world of hoods always rolling fake, Gregor does the only good thing a bug can do. Curl up into a ball and die. Damn. And if
He's on my list.
It's just funny that Dawkins, a lot of people pointed out as saying like Dawkins, because Peterson tried to talk to him about the metaphors of religion, all that stuff. And it kind of just shows that like his brain just does not work in that literary way at all, you know?
I got owned one time by some lefty on Twitter trying to. Yeah, I was citing. I always called White Fragility Kafka Trap the book, but I hadn't actually seen Kafka's name spelled out, so I spelled it with a V. And so my they're like, oh, okay, idiot, you can't even use that because you spelled it wrong. And I was like, ah, shit, you're right. You win. It's no longer a Kafka trap.
Anyway, I'll go back to, we're getting onto these like atheist cringe stuff. That's because we're got this other guy dropping all of the Dawkins, Krauss, and Neil deGrasse.
Yeah, really,
nice
really
stuff, but he's doing it at the expert level because he's an expert at religions. So he's good.
I can't even take the word expert seriously anymore.
Or in other words, science adjusts its views based on what's observed. Faith is the denial of observation so that belief can be preserved.
From Tim Minchin. That's from a song from Tim Minchin. Do you know what Tim Minchin is?
I do not.
I don't get it.
I guess the problem is whenever they talk about science and scientists, they're talking about the ideal. It's just not what it is. Because, yeah, ideally, science would adjust based on what's observed, but that's not always the case. People, like scientists, are people too. It's like we view them as demigods at this point, and they're subject to the same arrogance that all of us are, and they will fight tooth and nail if their grand discovery is challenged to be not quite true. I say this about a lot of things, but I think if you looked at the distribution of scientists and you somehow had a god that could tell you like how many of those are really, as Adam Friended puts it, team truth, it'd be the exact same proportion of people, just the general public, who would be team truth. I think it's a rare person who's willing to actually be this ideal that they're saying, and even that person can't do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, let me show you who Tim Minchin is. I like Tim Minchin, but you know,
I like a lot of these guys in their element. I like Richard Dawkins when he's arguing against like crazy moms who are against evolution or whatever. Okay, I know this guy.
Yeah, he makes a bunch of like songs about atheism and all that sorts of stuff. Tim Minchin
adjusts its views based on what's observed. Faith is the denial of observation so that belief can be preserved. If you show me that...
Yep, I knew it was in the middle of a song. I know what it is. He's got this whole thing where he goes on a date and he runs into he's actually talking with a girl who's a crystal mystic person. He's not talking to a religious person. He's talking to a crystal. Let's see.
I've met a lot of crystal people in my life, and what I would say to this is that, like, if you show, because he's saying right there, if you showed me that homeopathy worked, then I'd change my views. But like, I have to guess that your standard of proof for something like homeopathy would be a lot higher than your standard of proof for something like the multiverse theory. And I get that because, like, if somebody wants to tell me that this crystal can heal you, I'm not just going to take your word for it. I'm not just even going to take the word of the guy who said that his cancer was cured with a crystal. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's what this whole poem is about.
The opinion She opines over her Cabernet Sauvignon vis-a-vis some unhippily empirical comment made by me. Not a good start, I think. We're only on pre-dinner drinks, and across the room my wife widens her eyes, silently begs me, be nice. A matrimonial
Be nice.
warning not worth ignoring, so I resist the urge to ask Storm whether knowledge is so loose weave of a morning when deciding whether to leave her apartment by the front door or the window on her second floor. The food is delicious, and Storm, whilst avoiding all meat, happily sits and eats as the good doctor, slightly pissedly, holds court on some anachronistic aspect of medical history when Storm suddenly insists that the human body is a mystery. Science just falls in a hole when it tries to explain the nature of the soul. My hostess throws me a glance. She, like...
Okay, that's one of those things that I think is we're gonna see that on the bell curve of IQ. That'll be a meme that we see where the biggest idiot says that, well, the human body's mysterious and science doesn't know everything about it, and so does the smartest person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, I don't know. Tim mentioned all this time later if that's cringe stuff either, given that long poem, but that poem's from forever ago. Once again, the people he was trying to talk to inside of that poem, I bet you they'd be the type of people who nowadays you might have to argue about what they think about the soul and whether a body's part of that soul or that body is part of that gender or if that's all separate or not. And I bet you Tim mentioned would suddenly be nice.
For most people, it's a lot easier to see a flaw in somebody else's way of thinking than in your own. And since most of my following here on TikTok is not Mormon, the belief system that I was indoctrinated with, it'll be easy for you to see it in this next quote. But then I want you to ask yourself, is this same kind of thinking anywhere in my way of thinking? I start out with an assumption that the Book of Abraham and the Book of Mormon and anything else we get from the restored gospel is true. Therefore, any evidence I find, I will try to fit into that paradigm. Now,
it's pretty wild that a PhD will say that right out like that.
Well, that's pretty crazy. It's also he's a PhD. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Wow, PhDs
I've heard they're infallible. And
PhDs can use sophistry? No.
a lot of you might be wondering, what is the point of experimentation and research if what you find is not ever going to change what you already believe? You already decided what's true. So then what are you doing researching? What are you doing experimenting? This is the fundamental difference between science and religion: intellectual honesty. Let's look at this from another perspective.
There's a fundamental difference between intellectually honest people and intellectually dishonest people. It's not.
Yeah.
I can't
There's
stress this enough.
Feynman,
Plenty of intellectually dishonest scientists, and if you don't believe that, then you're lying to yourself.
Richard Feynman, one of the reasons we all know him was the, what's that explosion? The O-rings explosion for the Challenger explosion.
Oh, yeah.
He became famous because, I don't know, he might have been a little bit famous before that. I don't know. I wasn't old enough at that time frame. But he became really famous because he was brought in to figure out what the heck happened. And he was the person who found out the concept of groupthink. The whole idea of groupthink came out from his reviewing what went wrong with those scientists and their groupthink around the O-rings and the Challenger. The science that Richard Feynman was challenging was the science. And what he found inside the science was a bunch of people kind of recreating religious processes inside of the science. And I agree that the answer to that is doing science better. But the whole point of the whole entire thing is not presuming that any sort of a scientific community is above falling into that.
% Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Challenger, go at throttle up. 1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles. Reports from the flight dynamics officer indicate that the vehicle apparently exploded and that impact in the water. This is Mission Control Houston. We have no additional word at this time.
before the event, from information that was available and understanding that was fully appreciated everywhere, that this seal would become unsatisfactory at some temperature, and was there some sort of a suggestion of a temperature at which the SRB, I guess you call it,
Yes,
shouldn't be run?
Yes, sir. There was a suggestion of that. To answer the first question, given the configuration that we ran, that the seal would function at that temperature. That was the final judgment.
NASA officials discounted the possible effect of cold weather on the resiliency of the rubber O-ring on launch day, but Commission member Richard Feynman, after examining the O-ring, had a surprise.
Well, I took the stuff that I got out of your seal and I put it in ice water. And I discovered that when you put some pressure on it for a while and then undo it, it maintains, it doesn't stretch back, it stays the same dimension. In other words, for a few seconds at least, and more seconds than that, there's no resilience in this particular material when it's at a temperature of 32 degrees. I believe that has some significance for our problem.
Let us make recommendations to ensure that officials deal in a world of reality. They must live in reality in comparing the cost and utility of the shuttle to other methods of entering space. For a successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations, for nature cannot be fooled.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think that religion and science are the same. Like, I don't think they're two sides of the same coin. Like, obviously, the goal of science is to find truth. That's, you know, at its pure form. It's like these people pretend that that the scientists are not subject to the exact same human failings as religious people are.
Well, they are religious people. I mean, that's kind of the little point we've always been poking at, is that...
Well, I think everyone's religious. Almost everyone, anyway.
Exactly. Just because you've announced yourself a scientist and somebody free of that doesn't mean you've stopped doing the mechanisms.
Yeah. I'm no longer religious and believe everything that I hear. By the way, did you know that sex is a spectrum?
Yeah.
Satanic portal above the White House that appeared shortly after the election of Biden.
Because you are a witch, you are a rebellious Jezebel with your little lazy spirit.
Women can't even get along with each other. They can't even figure out their friendships. They're not going to figure out the country.
I hear a lot of wah, 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 not a lot of churning butter.
Yeah, he had Elijah Schaffer on there in the middle of what those other crazy guys are saying.
And we are the Christian Taliban. And we will not stop until The Handmaid's Tale is a reality. And even worse than that.
Oh my gosh, they're pulling
I'm positive I know what's happening. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know
that's
his beliefs.
That's Vincent from the Red Elements, and they are completely cherry picking.
I'm 100% sure the guy, like, he clipped it right before the guy said, and they think that blah, right.
He clipped it. He clipped it right before the yeah. That's where they clipped it. Yeah. We want to turn you into the Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. That's Vincent from the Red Elephants, who got kicked off of YouTube too, and he is a hardcore Catholic, but he got kicked off of YouTube for being a hardcore Catholic.
That is precisely what we intend to do, is to impose Christian laws on everyone in the United States of America.
Did he commit suicide? Was he suicided? We have no idea.
Brian, where's your
Wait a minute. Is she talking about Jeffrey Epstein in that?
She was talking about Jeffrey Epstein, yeah.
Okay, because like that seems to be like the most uniting conspiracy theory in the world. I don't know anybody who thinks that Jeffrey Epstein legitimately killed himself.
I think you officially have to be on the conspiracy side to think that it didn't.
Yeah, I know. That was like the most united we've been in the last decade. Is like left and right were making memes about how Jeffrey Epstein definitely did not kill himself.
But he's just signaling that he's on a particular side of stuff, and it's obviously the rational side.
Oh, get out of here.
I declare this July 4th, 2022, to be a declaration of independence against the alien force on this planet today, waging war against humans
He's much smarter than Alex Jones. He's
and our biology and our very future that is attempting to exterminate the majority of us and force the minority that's left to merge with AI computers and become cyborg slaves of Satan.
Some whack job can say this stuff and get
that's the proper reaction to Alex Jones. Is just giggling at that stuff he says. Even the people
Yeah.
who kind of believe and go along with like, yeah, I get what you're saying, Alex Jones, but like I know that you're putting it around a bunch of goofy metaphors.
So the Lincoln Project, he took that from a TikTok account that put
From the
together that
Lincoln Project.
dishonest.
Those
Oh, man.
groomers, the guy, you know, that
Yeah.
some of the Lincoln Project actually did sexually harass underage males.
Oh, Jesus.
Have you heard about that whole story?
I haven't.
Oh, yeah, they really did.
I can hardly be expected to keep up with all of the sexual harassment that takes place.
Oh,
There's
man.
just so much.
But yeah, he got caught actually doing it with one of them too.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Get quite frequently on my page is a variation on this theme. Kyle, you don't have to like
So something about that talking, man. I don't know.
I know.
Ugh.
I watched this one actually, and
What
God,
does he say?
ugh.
I don't.
religion, but you do have to respect it. No, I don't. Now, using a very simple meme, let me show you how this sounds to someone like me. Don't give me that look. This is part of our religion, and you should show some respect.
What? He's in a boiling pot.
Yeah.
Here's another really good one. Religious apologists complain bitterly that atheists and secularists are aggressive and hostile in their criticism of them. I always say, look, when you guys were in charge, you didn't argue with us. You just burnt us at the stake. Now what we're doing is we're presenting you with some arguments and some challenging questions, and you complain.
Yeah, that happened how many hundreds of years ago?
No, I know. Well, and it's just it. You're not talking to the people who were in charge at the time when like religion was doing terrible things to people. You're talking to the people now. But also, you get that meme that where they're like, "Oh, respect our religion while we're boiling you alive," and you're like, "Look, if we're gonna make anything work, you gotta at least kind of steelman the arguments of the people who you're talking to."
Yeah,
And
I think
obviously, most rational people, all rational people in the United States, if you're saying like if the religious view is to come into your house and kill you, and that's a religious right that they carry, they're not going to be like you have to respect that religion. You have to
This is-
understand that there's a governing principle. They might not have articulated, but there's clearly a governing principle behind what they think you should.
It's one of the
respect and what not.
it's one of my huge question marks to like atheists and these online Reddit atheism or militant atheist type people is like what's so hard about
So one of the comments that I still get quite frequently on my page is a variation on this theme. Kyle, you don't have to like religion, but you do have to respect it.
me? I can say yes, I'm an atheist or come from an atheistic worldview and go, okay, sure. The end. like that doesn't have to change what your beliefs are or anything. I can absolutely go, yeah, sure, there's a lot to respect about it.
Yeah,
On to
of
the
course,
next
I mean,
thing.
you should also just like people are gonna make fun of your religious beliefs. Get over it. That's I guess that's the
Yeah.
other side of it.
Yeah.
I do remember a lot of people getting. I had a friend or one of my mom's friends who posted this thing complaining about South Park and how they're so free to be mean to Mormons, but they're not mean to anyone else. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're nicest to the Mormons by
Yeah,
far.
you guys get off easy with South Park. They're nicer to you than they are to atheists.
You get called the truth in South Park.
Yeah.
Are dead, and this is hell. So abandon all hope and yada yada yada. We're now going to start the orientation process, which will last about. Hey, wait a minute! I shouldn't be here. I was a totally strict and devout Protestant. I thought we went to heaven. Yes, well, I'm afraid you were wrong. I was a practicing Jehovah's Witness. You picked the wrong religion as well. Well, who was right? Who gets into heaven? I'm afraid it was the Mormons. Yes, the Mormons were the correct answer.
Let's see. Oh gosh, this one. So this is one of my things that I really hate about the entire atheism movement is that. I guess I love Stephen Fry. I know Flip's a big fan of Stephen Fry too. Stephen Fry is great. And he's so cool, and he's been on with Peterson and all that stuff. And he was even on Peterson's side in that free speech thing. And I loved him with Hitch. But I hate this argument. I sincerely hate it. Although I do think the way that Stephen Fry delivers it is so much more eloquent than the average Reddit atheist person does, because he also kind of laughs, and you get the sense to him of him saying like, well, that's what I do, but I don't think that situation is going to happen. Because I know I'm obviously talking to a God that's not there. And I get the sense from like the Reddit atheists that they really want to yell at that God. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
whereas Stephen Fry is like, well, that's what I tell him, but I just don't think that situation's like, the obvious point I'm making is that I don't think he's there. And that's why the bugs are in the kid's eyes. That's my opinion. And what I get from the other atheists is that they actually want to yell at Sky Daddy because they're
I know,
mad.
it's like they think Sky Daddy's there and they want to yell at him, but
And they'd love to scold him. They don't want to scold him so bad. Tell him
this is
about
a
his
great it makes me think of a great chapter in the Brothers Karamazov where nobody steelmans atheist arguments like Dostoevsky, and that was his thing. He actually claimed that he never found really a satisfactory answer to the suffering of children, and I get that to a degree, but I'm also like, on an eternal, like, I hate to sound like putting my Mormon cap on, like the whole eternal perspective thing makes sense to me, that like anything shitty that happens to you here can be made up, and obviously,
Yeah, I
like
don't
in
understand why
eternity,
it's such a hard
but
concept.
obviously, if I were going through something like that, like if I had to watch my kid's eyes get eaten out by parasites, maybe I'd have a harder time being like, oh, well, you know what? It'll be made up for
So
it.
I think people can scream at the idea that it's horribly evil and bad to think on that eternal level. And I think that there are probably, if we're just going to say that on an atheistic level, there's probably an evolutionary reason why that's probably psychologically easier and better on people, even if it's not truly there. But the other end of it is like, if it is there, if eternity is there afterwards, I frequently make the joke is like, you got to put on that cap, and think, okay, 200 million years from now, plus 200 million years from now, plus another 200 million years from now, we're going to be sitting in some lounge drinking a coffee because maybe it's okay now. And we're sitting there drinking coffee, and in walks in a guy, and the guy who comes in is like, oh, can I get some coffee? Okay, can I put your name on the coffee? Oh yeah, it's Adolf Hitler. And you're sitting there, and it's 600 million years something on from there. My
Yeah.
guess is you'd be like, Adolf Hitler, Adolf Hitler, Adolf Hitler. I know the name, Adolf Hitler. Wait a minute. I was in
killed all
your
those people.
I was in your concentration camp. Wait. Earth. You remember Earth? We were on Earth. Oh yeah, dude. That's
You
so long
were an
ago.
asshole.
Oh my gosh, we were on that Earth place. That's so long ago. That's such a blip in these 600 million years that have happened since. I almost forgot.
When
That
you
was
put a
like
number to it, it actually, it helps.
that was like pre-egg. Like it wasn't even like an egg of we were inside an egg before we hatched into eternity or something like that. It just, if there really is an eternity, it makes absolutely no sense to think it would be any other way than not being able to remember extreme distress here on this
So they'll
small
try to
blip of a
like.
life.
I've seen this atheist meme where it's like Jesus pointing a little girl somewhere and being like, "Hey, that's the man that murdered you. He repented and it made it to heaven. Go say hi to him or whatever." And it was like this. It was posted in this Christian group that was responding to it, and they were like, "Well, yeah, what do you think we think about redemption? Like we say that everybody is redeemed through Jesus or whatever. Obviously, we think that includes killers."
There's some level of it that it has to play like, on an evolutionary level. If the eternity level is there, it's all obvious. But if it's not there, there's obviously got to be a societal benefit to thinking that way instead of just sitting in your rancor of something horrible or terrible happened. I mean, I think I do think that they couldn't get so forgiving, and if you look at what's going on in society right now, of who's letting out obvious criminals back onto the streets and trying to be overly forgiving of that type of stuff while they're here on this planet. I mean, I don't think any of those Christians are saying, yeah, go ahead and let that guy out of prison. they're saying after this life, maybe he can find forgiveness or something like that. But you have people like Cheso Bodine and all that stuff pulling people right out of prison for some pretty heinous crimes because they don't even think that they should be considered crimes nowadays. And I don't know. I think it's a boring, like the theodicy stuff, I think is a boring fight. I really do. Who do you pick if you were gonna pick?
Are you saying this guy versus Jackson Washburn?
Yeah, but I got to see what he says with what's he doing with my boy Hitchens.
Is it moral to believe that your sins, yours and mine?
Wait. I'll guess. This is what he's gonna do.
Oh, you're making a face? I can't see it. Hold on a second. Let me see it. I got to go back. Okay. I bet you're betting like an okay symbol. That that symbolizes white pride. Like
this guy's a normie, man. Like at least close to it.
He doesn't even know that's white pride, but he gets updated by the Lincoln Project, man.
Yeah.
But he does more. It's got to be like Hillsong Christian vibes, because I do think this dude's exactly like Hillsong type Christian type people. It's got to be like. Yeah, that's. I'm gonna go with the hand up. You're going with the. Okay.
Well, I've seen a couple of his videos. He does the okay symbol in some.
He does. Oh, what a white supremacist.
Can be forgiven by the punishment of another person. Is it ethical to believe that? I would submit that the doctrine of vicarious redemption by human sacrifice is utterly immoral. I might, if I wished,
It's just a head nod.
I guess he's just gonna do nothing.
He's not
my friends, or even if I didn't know you, but I just love the idea of you. Compulsory love is another sickly element of Christianity, by the way. But suppose I could say, look, you're in debt. I've just made a lot of money out of a God-bashing book. I'll pay your debts for you. Maybe you'll pay me back someday, but for now I can get you out of trouble. I could say, if I really loved someone who'd been sentenced to prison, if I could find a way of saying I'd serve your sentence, I'd try and do it. I could do what Sidney Carton does in A Tale of Two Cities, if you like. I'm very...
Would it be like a proper response video to this if you were like somebody totally on the other side of these things, to just put your face next to it, and anytime he says the stuff like shake your head, like say response video? No, we don't say anything. We just do the
Yeah. Dude, we need to figure out stupid hand signals.
Owned. You're owned.
Owned by feelings.
Very unlikely to do this unless you've been incredibly sweet to me. I'll take your place on the scaffold. Is it moral to
all he
believe
did was nod once.
that your sins,
Dude, don't do these videos, man.
This is content parasitism is what I would call this.
Yeah, it's taking other people's content and making it your content. So who do you pick in your battle royale? Like if you
Jackson Washburn, easy.
You go into Jackson Washburn corner over him.
Jackson will blow him out of the water. And I don't say like he's not.
No, I genuinely picked Jackson Washburn too.
This guy's more of a normie. He's prepared to.
Oh, as far as like how smart they are to win. Yeah, for sure, Jackson.
Wait, what were you talking about?
Just which irritates you more. But if you're going to like an actual the smarts, Jackson would win. But I was going just off of annoyance levels. I would also take Jackson Washburn's side.
Probably Jack, because this is like cringy. Jackson, like
I think Jackson's performative stuff, you kind of have to like be a sleuth to pick up on it too. I think this guy's stuff just like right a second into it, you're like, ugh.
Well, yeah, you hear life coach and you're like, ugh.
Life coach, and then just immediately with the way that he's talking, let me tell you how this sounds to a person like me.
Is to debate and attack one another.
So I agree that this shouldn't be made a personal issue. This isn't Kyle against Jackson.
Boring.
There's just no need for us to restrict ourselves to simple debates on whether or not it's true or false.
All right, hold the phone. J. Reuben Clark said, if we have the truth, it cannot be harmed by investigation. If we have not the truth, it ought to be harmed. Gordon B. Hinckley said, I would like to say that this cause is either true or false. Either this is the kingdom of God or it is a sham and a delusion. He went on to say, our whole strength rests on the validity of that first vision. It either occurred or it did not occur. If it did not, then this work is a fraud. So for you to make the claim that the truth isn't really the most important thing, it's not at the top of the list, is so wildly disingenuous to me. There is a
Okay, how
vast
many times
market
do you want to bet like if I could do a word search over his TikTok to just find the phrase "my truth" or "your truth,"
It's
like
true.
this guy's a life coach. He says "my truth" all the time. I guarantee it. And now he's like, "Well, it really matters. What is the truth? That's what we need to."
And I actually don't think that that's the disingenuous part of Jackson. I think that's the part where he's pretty straightforward with it. I think he's almost worse that he's kind of trying to push that onto the Mormon people to believe it in his altered way. But I think if you listen to him enough that he makes it pretty clear that he believes it in an altered way. And I don't think that's where the trickery
I
lies.
don't. I don't
I
think.
think the
I don't think
trickery is that
Jackson.
he's trying to
I
get
don't
it
think.
accepted into mainstream Mormonism in a way.
I don't think Jackson believes in things. that's that's
Yeah,
my diagnosis.
I think he believes in maintaining the Mormonism inside of his disbelief and then alter it so it also fits his whatever his lifestyle is. And he would like to maintain the Mormon rituals and the Mormon world and the Mormon devotionals and all that sorts of stuff while also being able to live the life he wants. And part of, I think, what he wants it to do is to adjust to him. He wants the rituals and that world to adjust to him to fit his view of how beautiful that could be. And I think that's what I think that's the crap that's got to be dropped, especially by most of those divinity school guys. I think they're like most of the people who from that leftist, I say it's leftist, but it is leftist angle of I change the society to fit me. I think they take religion of I change this religion to fit me, and I want the whole entire religion to start changing to fit me. And I think inherently inside of that, it kind of says that you don't really believe in it because you're not trying to fit into it or make sense of it. You're trying to make it fit you. And what the heck that's all about. I mean, I don't exactly get it, but if he's arguing with an ex-Mormon or like a non-Mormon person, I don't think that I don't think that disingenuousness is right there. I think he's straight up saying to that guy, like, hey, I don't straight up believe it straight up. And that's fine. That's how I do stuff. And I don't think that an ex-Mormon should care so much about that. And
I think he's trying to tell the guy, like, look, I believe in Mormonism, but I believe in this woke shit way more. So
yeah,
we should be pals. We're like, why are we fighting, buddy?
yeah.
We
And I don't
technically have the same religion.
honestly, like most of the people, I mean, like you said, like, highest principles kind of just the more just leave them alone or leave everybody. And it's the same principle I have for the Mormons. Like, trust me, like if trying to they're trying to make you not allowed to be gay or something like that in a world where you're not allowed to leave Mormonism. I'm against Mormons doing that to you, Jackson, or something like that. But I'm also against you going and trying to change Mormonism. I think it's just a leave each other alone as far as you can principle. And as I don't like Mormons
It
getting
makes me
involved in
think of
politics, you know.
it makes me think of the trend of like starting a sentence with the word normalize. Because
Mhm.
nothing constructive has ever come after that word. It's always something like normalize like polyamory or whatever. I saw one the other day that was normalize husbands and wives sleeping in separate bedrooms. And I was like, why? And the person responded to me by saying, like, well, because it's stigmatized. People think it's weird. Well, just do it anyway. Who
Yeah.
cares? Why does it bother you that it's not normalized? Why do I need to like approve? Ask
Yeah.
for tolerance.
Why
Okay,
does
if I'm
everybody
trying to
else
make
have to
laws,
announce it's okay for you to do it? Just do it. You were already in your own house. Just do
if
it.
I believe in marriage. I don't believe you have to sleep in the same bed, especially the older you get. I was cool up until young 40s. Now I'm okay. Because she wakes me up every other night. Once a week, I get woken up dead sleep. Get up. What? You're going for a sleep apnea test.
You don't need society to announce that it's okay for that to start happening.
What kind of a weakling? What do you need people to like? When I had long hair when I was in high school, and everyone would like in my church would shit on me and be like, I guess you should go to Young Women's, and it was stupid. But I wasn't up there screaming like, normalize having long hair. I was just like, fuck you, I'll have long hair.
Yeah, I had long hair, and it was in the 90s when not many people had it too, but everybody's real nice to me. Nobody ever said much about it
I mean, they just teased me. It wasn't like
yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. I didn't go around saying you guys all got to normalize around to me, and that's so much of just what the essence of the moment is, and it's the essence of what irritates me about the divinity school guys. Like I don't get bothered at all about the way Dan McClellan believes or learns about the stuff or goes and tries to get into all the nitty-gritty details of the history of religion. What irritates me is that he's obviously trying to get activistic and use it and alter Mormon belief. He's for sure, I'm 100% positive. I know I can make the case just from what he's put out there, but he's trying to alter Mormon perception from the inside. I know Jackson is trying to alter Mormon perception from the inside. And why? Leave him alone. I do believe in pushing back on the church when they've overstepped, for sure. If they've overstepped into law and they've gotten into a realm that's not their realm to get into, that they're supposed to be a separation of, yes, push back against them. But I don't necessarily think that means like just because Mormons in general vote for a thing that equals the same thing as like the Mormon church actively got involved in politics. So it gets a little hard to decipher what's actually leaving people alone or not. But my belief on both sides of it is leave them alone.
Yeah. I will say I
Of
have
ideas out
an
there.
inherent distrust of the whole life coach thing, right? And part of it is because, again, my wife has a lot of these friends who are in the life coach community. And I've noticed there's two different types of people in the life coach
They're
community.
they're MLM types.
Yeah, they are. A lot of it's women who
Mhm.
are like religious housewives who are looking for some type of meaning, and they get into some weird, crazy life coachy beliefs.
And they got pressured
and they're
into it by
looking-
somebody else.
And the
usually
smaller
manipulated that way.
percentage, because there's not nearly as many men, but the men that are there are all making money.
Yeah.
It's not the ones that are like signing up for the groups and stuff like that. It's all the women signing up for the groups.
They're making money and getting certain levels of internet attention for it too.
Yeah.
And having these group meetups, and I've seen it in some of that. So there's some men's groups that are absolutely ridiculous that have started, and I think they've disappeared as fast as they start, but that's usually what happens with those things. But I watched a couple of them grow. I forget the exact names of them, but they all have these types of names like We're Lions and that type of stuff. And you see one of them start, and then they get a following, and they show like some pictures of them doing some group activities or something like that. And then next thing you know, you see another one start up called Better Than Lions or something like that. And then they start fighting back and forth with each other and saying, he wasn't the real one, I was the real one. And the other one starts saying, no, I was the real one. And then it's really like, I bet you we could go start doing an ex-religious life coach, and we could really get this guy to start to respond to us, because that's barging in on his
They're telling. There's just no need for us to restrict
Is this the same
ourselves
one?
to simple debate.
Vast market of ideas out there, and the ideas that we choose to accept and reject make up the quality of life that we live. Truth matters, and belief systems directly correlate with behavior. You don't believe there's 72 virgins waiting to fuck you, you're not going to blow up the bus. That's why secular society.
Oh man, Dan McClellan would not go down for this. And there's such
I
like a
wasn't even
weird
paying attention, but he sounds like Pippin. That's what it is. It sounds exactly like Pippin when they come to Isengard after Helm's Deep, and Pippin's standing there with his pipe in his mouth, and he tells Gimli, what is it? I mean, the cured pork is especially delicious.
You young rascals! A merry hunt you've led us on, and now we find you feasting and smoking!
We are sitting on a field of victory, enjoying a few well-earned comforts. The salted pork is particularly good.
Salted pork?
I nailed it. I've been looking for it this whole time. He sounds like Pippin with a pipe in his mouth.
There's, like I said, there's such like a weird Venn diagram of atheist types, because some of the stuff that he's saying, it's gonna irk a woke person. If he starts talking about Muslims like that, it's gonna irk a woke
Oh,
person.
wait, don't go. I want to see his dating advice. That
Where,
one had a lot of
Well, that
dating
sounds good.
advice, has a lot of views.
A
I
lot
have
of
a question
views.
for the ladies. So there's a whole bunch of
What do you mean by ladies?
TikToks and Instagram posts about things that women hate that men do when they try to date them. And there's a whole bunch of that that's very well represented out there on social media. But I realize there's not a whole lot about what women love men to do when trying to reach out to them, trying to date them. So I'm interested, what are the things that for you have been like, that is amazing. I love that he just did that. And I wish there would be more people who would approach me like that or do these kinds of things. What are those things?
Dick pics.
Pippin really needs to get laid. That first thing on there, she's like saying, make a plan, do a reservation, tell us what to wear. That was like the first comment. I was like, wait a minute, you want us to be like bossy? Like, wear a dress, bitch.
Oh, this one went viral. What do you think it went
Oh,
viral
shit.
for?
I don't know. Probably something very intelligent.
That's one of his most viral. Let's see what that one is.
Reasons I'm Not Christian, part 27 million.
For the last several weeks, we have noted that you have stopped attending the assembly of the church. After attempts to discuss the situation with you, we fear that you no longer are convinced in the need to assemble with the church for which Christ died. We are very saddened by your decision. This failure to assemble is not the only problem that you must address. We have
Is he
been
just
to
reading
understand our
somebody else's
obligation
letter?
to shepherd. 2021.
He didn't get
Yeah,
that letter.
Reasons I'm Not Christian, part
that's not
27 million.
his.
For the last several weeks, we have noted that you have.
He didn't. He's just reading. I mean, that's some lady's letter or something like that.
Yeah.
So he probably just got that online or something.
That's something you laugh at. That's there's this like aspect to ex-Mormons that like there must be some part of them that still like believes in it or some shit, because they'll get something like that and insulted.
Yeah,
Like, why are you insulted? You think it's
you
all
would-
fake?
I dust my feet off at you. Like, what?
It's like if somebody
Okay.
said it, they get like mad when people say, "I'm praying. I put your name on the temple prayer roll." And I
somebody
can't
does-
believe my mom would do that. You can't believe your mom would like ask God to bless you. Does that bother you?
If somebody dusts their feet off on me, I'd probably go and try to collect the dust and like put it in like a locket or something like that.
I make fun of them to their face. Like, I don't believe in the thing you just did. It's funny that you think that that would bother me, but apparently it bothers people.
Welcome back to part 4 of 10 Rules of Sex for Wives.
Sometimes your husband will need to punish you.
Reading random Bible stuff that's weird. I mean, I guess you could
Ah.
have like an endless list of those things. Content for days.
Imagine teaching a child that they're inherently broken and need to be fixed, that they're inherently lost and need to be found, that they're inherently unworthy and need saving, that they're inherently weak and need to be codependent on others in order to get by, and to prescribe to their depraved, disgusting holy books in order to make themselves.
Why?
That
why
really
is
is
it?
just 2005 internet atheism.
So,
huh?
like, how? I guess not many of them call themselves life coaches, but like, how is this not like the most main demographic of everybody you meet nowadays? You know, every. I mean, not to use the social justice warrior term, but like basic white male, like atheist, like I'm not even saying it in the sense of oh, they're bad or something like that. I'm just saying it in this common. It's just so common. Like, why do you need a life coach for the most common thing that there is out there right now? Like, I'm the most common guy there is out there. Need a life coach about it?
So there's probably there's got to be a name for this, but and somebody that knows about psychology, has expertise in that, and one of those PhD scholars could explain it better than I could. But I think there's obviously this phenomenon with people when something big happens, like when they leave a church, the Mormon church, let's say, that's fresh and it's new and it's awesome, and you never want that newness to wear off. And
yeah, so
you
it's
you can
exciting.
spend way too much time just circling around the same 5 ideas that
Yeah,
were
you're
once
hitting it.
fresh
You're
and
hitting on the head
amazing
what
to
it
you.
feels like.
Yeah, and so they just but it makes them less and less happy each time. Like it's
Yeah,
less fresh.
chasing the dragon. They're chasing the
Eventually
dragon.
they just start like it sounds like they're angrily screaming those 5 ideas.
They're chasing the dragon. They want to bring them to somebody else so they can see them have the realizations they had and enjoy it a second time, but only only tangentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I think your phrasing there hits on the head what's irritating about me. It's not that they have these realizations, especially if they grew up in like a religion like Mormonism and they didn't know very much outside of it, and then you have these types of insights that you think change your whole entire life. I'm not knocking on that at all. What I'm knocking on is that, like, he's obviously way out of it. It's been a long time or whatever, and then he's just, like you said, your wording, circling around the same 5 ideas again and again and again and again.
I believe that humans are inherently religious.
Out of all the programs our brains are constantly running, there's one singular goal our brains prioritize above all others: don't die. It makes sense because no other brain function is relevant if you're dead. If your mind fails to detect and
This is just not, it's not true. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. Is he trying to explain why humans are not inherently religious?
Yeah, he's trying to go against Jackson saying that, or at least he's going to try to like alter what the term religion means. I agree with Jackson on this one, and that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that they believe in God the same way. I think that's what usually irks atheists or ex-religious people so much when you say that. But I think they all would do better for themselves to stop and realize how they're still doing religious mechanisms, even if they're aware of it or not. They're tending to do some of the same activities or the same directional behaviors, and are probably aren't even very aware of it. And I think if you even get aware of it, it'd be helpful to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
can react effectively to a threat, the door knocks. And who is it? Oh, look, natural selection. But how exactly does our brain accomplish the complex task of staying alive? Here's the formula. Pain is greater than pleasure. To your brain, 1 unit of pleasure is not equal to 1 unit of pain. Pain holds more weight to the brain because pain equals damage, and enough damage equals death. So to your brain, pain equals death. The brain will give up multiple units of pleasure if it means it can avoid just one pain. This explains why criticism hurts more than praise feels good. Any creature that can foresee its own death will invent an afterlife. Because God is real? No, because we're wired to create rose-colored realities to soften the inherently brutal way that life ends for all of us, in death. Our natural
Okay,
instinct
but
to
he's
survive
not
is
even
not the
answering
same
the
as the need to believe in
question.
God, and your argument conflates the two as though they were one. They're not.
He didn't even answer he actually didn't even respond to it. They're talking about two different things. Because Jackson says, thanks for putting me on the defense of Jackson here, but Jackson says humans are inherently religious, and he responds by saying, "Oh, so no, humans don't inherently just believe in God." That's not what he's saying. At least I don't think that's when I say I think humans are all generally religious. I'm not saying that all humans believe in God or just inherently believe in God.
Yeah, so this is something what he's regurgitating right there is terror management theory, which isn't necessarily. He's coming at it like science has this figured out, and terror management theory is definitely not figured out. Absolute hardcore truth. I know I've heard Peterson talk about it and that stuff, and I think there's obviously something to it. I mean, we all are obviously preoccupied in some way, or the evolutionary process is preoccupied with survival and thrival. But the problem is, evolutionary psychologists have kind of pointed to the concept of, yeah, but that's not like a frontal cortex cognition of what you're doing every single moment of every single life, and it doesn't really make sense of what you're talking about. So one of the ways that people even point to saying that you're doing religious thinking are some of those pragmatic things that you put into your system of how you try to go about through your day, making sense of all the information that you can't make sense of, or making decisions when you don't have all the information in the world. So you kind of get these religious notions that if it's not exactly religion, I like to catch myself in little proto-religious thoughts all the time, and some of them are negative religious thoughts in the sense of like, if I do that, something bad's going to happen, like a karma thought or something like that. Then you can't help like a karma thought come into your mind sometime or not, no matter how rationalistic you are or not. We all have little moments of thinking of something like karma. Does that make sense? And you can't beat it. And that karma thing is the thing that takes the place of the endlessly autistic awareness of death. You know, it's a leap. It's like a leap that your brain's doing to frame the world in a different way than to have to be constantly fully autistically aware of just surviving and thriving. It's the stories. It's the stories we tell ourselves. It's the stories mitigate it being exactly terror management theory. And so those stories are what become religious to you. The stories you tell yourself.
Sounds about right.
Right.
Well, shit.
Should we call it good? You want to see one last one on him and see if it's just
Probably. Let's
if he just hits it out of the park?
I gotta wake up in like 5 hours, so yeah.
Holy crap! You gotta get up that early.
Yeah, I gotta wake up at like 4:30 to.
Oh man, we went 2
work on
hours.
time. Yeah, it's all good.
Let's.
I signed
we'll
up
round
for
it
it.
up. We'll hit it out of the park with one last final one. This one will convert us and make us decide to join the life coach.
This one will make you decide which package to purchase. It's only $8,000 a month, and it's only a 2-year commitment. I'm gonna feel like a real dick if he's got like hearing problems. And that's why he's not that way.
Well, you made me think of Jordan Peterson there with the way that was coming off. So it made me think like maybe he offers in there like the how to write your life thing, and he just scratches out Jordan Peterson's name on it. Let's see. Should we go with like a high number one or a low note? Should we see what's not popular? What doesn't hit? What? Oh wait, is he just smiling at Sam Harris here? Gotta see.
Faith is really the perfection of narcissism.
It's just him smiling at Sam Harris.
This is
Why did he laugh?
Wait. What got that reaction?
He makes me feel so good while singing in church. And just when we had given up hope, he found a banker who was willing to reduce my mother's mortgage. Okay, given all that this guy
I don't
does
think
not accomplish.
I don't think his reactions have anything to do with what's being said. He just has like a list of, okay, first I'm going to do this reaction, then the next one is going to be like this, and then
turns out they just wanted money from you. Oh, got him! Got him! Let's see. Here's the least one I see. Oh, wait, there's a 1028. Boundaries.
For anyone who is leaving religion, learning how to set healthy boundaries is going to be a massive player in how well you heal from what you've been through. One of the things that I learned being raised Mormon was that whatever the church asked for, you unconditionally give it. It didn't matter if you didn't have money, you pay tithing. It doesn't matter what science says, you do not drink green tea. And it doesn't matter what you read on the internet, even if it's stuff that the church posted themselves, you are not to believe anything that criticizes the church. Here's one of the things that I learned throughout this experience. People are showing you their true colors all the time. Don't paint over them once you've seen them. It's not arrogant and it's not judgmental.
Gosh,
For anyone who finds in creating boundaries keep their shit from becoming your shit. This doesn't mean you can't be understanding and forgiving. It simply means that there are lines that once crossed, you act. The church never taught us that we should have some sort of a baseline, a threshold at which we can know that once crossed, we're done. Something has to change. They want to see you play. It shouldn't work that way. Choose yourself. That's how you teach them, by choosing you.
All right, is it not popular because it's boring?
treat yourself.
Ugh. All right, did we pick on this guy?
I don't know. We can find a stupid one to end it on.
I think we'll probably pick on this guy more in the future, just like I think we'll pick on some of these other guys more in the future. But let's go high. Let's shoot for a high one.
Well, there's a Pride Month on up there.
Why religion survives? Where's
because people are not rational like me. I have a couple.
Because they get tricked into wanting to have an answer for this life, and that answer is not scientific.
Why is it that religion has survived for so long?
For so long.
One of the great tragedies of mankind is that morality has been hijacked by religion. Man in his arrogance thinks himself a great work, worthy the interposition of a great deity, more humble and I believe true to consider him created from animals. The more I study religions, the more I am convinced that man never worshipped anything but himself. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Blind faith secures its own perpetuation by the simple unconscious expedient of discouraging rational inquiry.
He says that how religion survives, and then he just gives a bunch of like inspirational atheist quotes.
It's just a bunch of quotes that are off of brainyquote.com.
Most people don't want the truth. They just want the reassurance that what they believe is the truth. Why is it that religion...
That got 28,000 views.
Jesus Christ, the bar is low.
32,000. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to be nice. If being nice means...
I don't know. He probably has a $3,200 course on being nice.
Yes.
Right there. The Mormonism versus LGBTQ.
Where?
bottom
Or
right on your screen. Or there's Pride Month. Oh, they're both different.
which
The one on the
this
very
one
right
didn't
has
get
the
any
most
hits.
views. Yeah.
The short answer is, of course, that we absolutely don't hate LGBTQ people.
Well, that's kind of interesting because I recall it would also be desirable to allow employers to exclude homosexuals from influential positions in media, literature, and entertainment, since those jobs influence the tone and ideals of a society. However, homosexuals have such footholds and influence in these areas that such a law would be difficult to enact and almost impossible to enforce. Down eight jokes, your next prophet. Along with many others, I see a serious threat to the freedom of religion in the current assertion of a civil right of homosexuals to be free from religious preaching against their relationships. I could not find the term homosexuality in the Bible, but I did find numerous places where the Lord condemned such a practice with such vigor that even the death penalty was assessed. You know, there's a lot of people who have to round up the people they don't like and kill them, but your church actually gets them to do it themselves. Now that's efficient.
Really? To cause the suicides.
Yeah,
The
this
Mormon
sounds
Church causes the suicides.
Sounds like it's likely a systemic problems. Maybe we'll get Dan Reynolds on the job.
This one,
Welcome back to part.
I have a nope. It's 1 minute long. I had a theory that they got less. They got less if they were longer, but
3 of A Brief History of Mormonism versus LGBTQ. Homosexual relationships are dead end. What would this man do for
is that Obama?
you or these
And
men
Andrew
should you
Clavin.
suddenly fall victim?
What an unlikely pairing.
Obama and Andrew Clavin were lovers. Yeah.
To a dread disease, an
I
incurable
guess I did learn something from him.
disease. Suppose your body shriveled. Suppose you could no longer satisfy sexually. Suppose you could no longer be used. How long would the alleged friendship or friendly ties
Talking like
last?
that.
We don't know why that homosexual attraction came that way. We don't make any attempt to say why that happened or how it happened. This is obviously a lie because in 1981, the church itself published a booklet called Homosexuality, and they said the causes of homosexual
When's he
behavior
gonna
were
stop
disturbed
using
family
that
background.
goddamn Coldplay song? It's just like every
Is
video.
is it like a TikTok option? I wonder if it's like just like a TikTok option to stick on your video.
It must be because there's videos. I am so tired of some of the songs you hear on TikTok. They're so.
There's probably like an algorithm that says if you put this song on there, you're
Poor relationship with peers, unhealthy sexual attitudes, and early homosexual experience. And as per the usual, the Mormon Church's grasp on science is a 0 out of 4.
The short.
Welcome back to part 3 of A Brief
It's like-
History. One generation of
Yeah,
homosexual
this is just him
marriages
coming
would
out with-
depopulate a nation, and if sufficiently
It's just the basics.
Yeah, it's just like Mormon leaders said shitty things in the past.
Thank you for this series. I look forward to the downfall of the Mormon Church.
Yeah, I saw it.
I keep discovering more and more of this rhetoric. It's so much worse than I ever thought. I hope we somebody out there got convinced to get a life coach.
Yeah, I know the rhetoric too that they use. I
What's
actually
that?
don't have. Well, it's always high pressure sales tactics. Like people will be like, I actually don't have the money to buy your $3,000 year long commitment package. And you could say that you don't have the money to spend, but do you think that you don't have the money to spend, or can you really afford not to buy this package? Is what you should be asking yourself.
You verge into your Peterson-ness when he gets talked about. It's got the over pronunciation, but you give it a bit of a Kermit to it. He's got much stronger over pronunciation. But
He sounds like he sounds almost Irish.
well, anyway, I hope this was a pretty good reconciliation with Jackson. Well,
Yeah,
we're cooler with you,
We're
Jackson.
sorry,
Okay.
Jackson. We came crawling back to Jackson Washburn.
You win those debates. Anyway, all right, I'll edit this down and put it out.
Sounds good.
All
I
right.
love bitching about things.